Hi there. My name is Papa Pete, and I want to invite you to listen to AESOP'S Fables with me. Aesop was a Greek fable writer and storyteller who lived more than 2,500 years ago. That's a long time, and we still like to listen to his fables today. So join me now as I read these Fables by Aesop. Here's a fable by Aesop with a very important lesson for everyone about friendship. Let's listen to the story of the two travelers and the bear. Two young men were traveling together through a forest one day when suddenly a huge bear crashed out of the brush and charged right at them. "Great heavens, it's a bear, and he's after us!" cried one of the travelers. He thought of nothing but saving himself. Grabbing a nearby tree limb, he swung himself up and out of danger. The other man, with no time to get away and unable to fight the bear alone, threw himself on the ground and lay absolutely still, holding his breath and pretending he was dead. He had heard that a bear will not touch a dead body. Well, the bear stood tall over the motionless traveler and sniffed the air around him. The bear even put his muzzle close to the man's ear. Since it appeared that the traveler laying on the ground in front of him was lifeless, the bear soon lost interest and wandered back into the forest. After a while, when it looked like it was safe again, the first traveler cautiously descended from his tree and went over to his friend. "It looked just as if the bear whispered something into your ear," he said with a laugh. "What did he tell you?" The second traveler, still lying on the ground, sat up and replied, with irritation, "He whispered to me not to travel with the friend who will abandon me in times of danger, and advised me that a man who leaves his friend so easily is a coward." The moral of this story is, you aren't a good friend if you desert a companion when he is in trouble. This fable by Aesop is enjoyed by children all over the world. Children just like you. So now let's listen to the story of the boy who cried wolf. A young shepherd boy tended a flock of sheep every day near a deep, dark forest not far from his village. It was a pleasant enough job. He could sit on a rock and play his pipe. He could lie on his back and watch the white clouds sailing while the sheep grazed nearby. But one day it was too quiet and peaceful, and he got bored. As he sat watching his sheep, he began thinking what he would do if he ever saw a wolf come out of the nearby forest. It was at this time that he thought of a plan to amuse himself. He thought that it was a very funny plan. His father had told him to call for help should a wolf ever attack the sheep, and the farmers and the villagers would come quickly to drive the wolf away. So now, though the boy had not seen anything even looking a little like a wolf, he ran toward the village shouting at the top of his voice, "Wolf! Wolf!" In the quiet air his cries carried far. The people in the village and the farmers in the fields heard him. "A wolf is after our sheep," they called out to one another. They grabbed their pitchforks, their axes, and even their shovels. Then they ran to the meadow to defend their sheep from the wolf. But when they got to the pasture, there was no wolf to be seen. The sheep were quietly grazing, and the shepherd boy was doubled up with laughter at the trick he had played on them. "I fooled you! I fooled every one of you!" he shouted. A few days later, the shepherd boy decided to play that trick again and shouted, "Wolf! Wolf!" Once more the farmers and villagers ran to help him, only to find the bored shepherd boy laughing at them again. But the very next evening, as the sun was setting, and as the shadows were creeping over the pasture, a wolf really did run out of the forest and began chasing the sheep. In terror, the boy ran toward the village, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Wolf! Wolf!" But though the farmers and villagers heard him yelling again, they did not run to help him as they had before. "He will not ever fool us again," they said, and no one ran to help. So the wolf did great harm to the boy's flock of sheep that day, and then slipped away back into the forest. The moral of this story is, a liar will not be believed, even when he tells the truth. Here is another Aesop's fable for children. So close your eyes and listen closely to the story of the cat and the mice. Once upon a time, in a little house on the edge of a village, some mice lived quietly, eating crumbs and having the run of the house. Life was simple and sweet, until a very sly cat moved in. "This is excellent," said the cat, her tail twitching with excitement. And right away she began to chase the mice. Terrified, the mice scrambled as fast as they could to the safety of their hiding places. They called a secret meeting where they talked about the new cat. "She'll never stop chasing after us," squeaked one of the mice. "I think that if we stay hidden, she'll go away. So we must stay hidden until she's gone." The others nodded in agreement, deciding to stay safe in their holes until the cat gave up and left the house to find another place to live. So they stayed hidden. The cat noticed that the house had suddenly gone very quiet. "Those mice have gone into hiding," she thought, her eyes narrowing. "Well, we can all play this game. I will catch those mice one way or another." Here was the cat's plan. With a dramatic sigh, the cat would climb onto an old shelf and dangle herself head down to make the mice think she was dead. Then she would hang there as still as a painting. "For sure, all the mice will think I'm no longer a danger to them," she thought slyly. "Then I'll be able to catch them easily." For many hours the cat hung from the old shelf. After a long time, one curious mouse peeped out. She saw the cat hanging there and told the others, and thinking the cat was dead, the mice slowly came out to celebrate that the cat was no longer going to chase after them. Once all the mice had come out of their holes, the cat suddenly leapt to the floor, surprising the mice and chasing them as they ran back to the safety of their homes. Now the mice stayed hidden more than ever, so the cat devised another plan. Covering herself in a big pile of flour, which mice love to eat. Again she waited, keeping one eye open just a little bit to watch for the mice. And sure enough, not seeing the cat and thinking the cat had left their house, the mice began to come out of their holes. As they did, an old mouse, who already had lots of experience with cats and their tricks, stayed safely near his hole in the wall where he lived. "Take care to look over there at the flour," he warned. "That may look like a heap of flour, but to me it looks very much like the cat. Whatever it is, it's wise to stay a very safe distance away." The moral of this story is, the wise person does not let himself be tricked a second time. Now let's listen to this Aesop's fable about the bundle of sticks. There once was a father who had 4 sons. He loved them all very much, and they loved him too. But he was troubled greatly because they were always arguing between themselves. Nothing the father said or did could stop the arguing. "What can I do to show my boys how wrong it is to argue all the time with each other?" the father thought. "I want them to understand that their arguing will create problems for them in the future." He finally figured out a way to get his message across and waited for just the right time to show them. One day, when the sons had been arguing much worse than usual, and each one was in an ugly mood, the father called his boys to him and asked them to bring him a bundle of sticks. Then, handing the sticks to each of his sons in turn, he said, "Which of you can break this bundle?" Although each one tried, not one was able to break the bundle. Then the father untied the bundle and gave each of his sons a single stick to break. Of course, they were able to do it very easily, one at a time. "My sons," said the father, "each of you alone are as easy to defeat as just one of these sticks. Now can you see that if you will be friends with each other and help each other, your enemies won't be able to hurt or defeat you? Together you will be strong, just like this bundle of sticks. But if you are divided and oppose each other, each of you will be no stronger than one single stick." The moral of this story is, when we work together and help each other, we are strong. Now let's listen to Aesop's fable of the farmer's donkey. One day, a farmer's old donkey fell into a deep, dry well that wasn't used anymore. Thankfully, the donkey was not injured, but he brayed in distress for many hours as the farmer tried to figure out a way to get him out of the well. After some time and thinking about it, the farmer decided that since the donkey was old, and that the dry well needed to be filled up with dirt and covered over anyway, he wouldn't even try to get the poor old donkey out. Sadly, he thought it just wasn't worth the effort. So he called his neighbors to help him fill up the well. They all grabbed their shovels and began tossing dirt into the well. The donkey at first brayed louder, for he thought it was his end. Then, surprisingly, the donkey became very quiet. After a while, the farmer and his neighbors stopped throwing in dirt and looked down into the well. They were surprised and pleased to see the donkey shaking off the dirt from each shovelful and stepping on top of it. You see, the donkey used the dirt to keep getting closer to the top of the well. Before long, the old donkey happily stepped out of that old dry well with a new lease on life. The moral of this story is, life presents many challenges, but the key is to persevere and to use them as stepping stones to rise above every problem. Here's another story for you. Close your eyes and listen now to the story of The Goose and the Golden Eggs, a fable by Aesop. There once was a man and his wife who had the very good fortune of having the most wonderful goose you can imagine. To their delight, when they visited the nest every day, the goose had laid a beautiful, glittering, golden egg. They took the golden eggs to the village market and soon began to get very rich. But lucky as they were in getting a golden egg every day, They soon grew impatient with the goose because she gave them only a single golden egg every day. Only one. They felt they were not getting rich fast enough. So one day, after they had finished counting their money, the idea came to them that since the goose must be made of gold on the inside, they could kill it in order to get all of the precious golden eggs at once. But when they did that, they didn't find a single golden egg, and their precious goose was dead. In the end, the man and his wife neither got rich, as they had hoped, nor did they get their daily golden egg ever again. The moral of this story is, people should be grateful for what they already have instead of always wanting more. Now here's another story enjoyed by children all over the world. Children just like you. So close your eyes and listen to the story of Mercury and the Woodman, a fable by Aesop. Once upon a time, a hard-working woodman, we would call him a lumberjack today, was chopping down a tree near a big river. It was late in the day, and he had been working hard since sunrise, and he was very tired. One time, as he swung his axe, it flew out of his hands and splashed into the deep river, sinking all the way to the bottom. The woodman couldn't believe what had just happened. He was very discouraged at this, for it was a good axe. He used it every day to earn a living, and he didn't have the money to go out and buy a new one. Now it was at the bottom of the river and gone forever. As he stood wondering what to do, the god Mercury appeared to him. "Why are you so discouraged?" Mercury asked. As the woodman explained what had happened and why he was so upset, Mercury listened closely without saying a word. After the woodman had finished, Mercury said, "Don't worry, I will help you." With that, Mercury dove into the deep river and soon came up holding a beautiful golden axe. "Is this the axe you lost?" Mercury asked. The woodman shook his head. No, that is not mine," he replied honestly. Mercury nodded his head and dove again, this time returning with a shining silver axe. "Perhaps this is yours?" Again the woodman shook his head. "No, that is not mine either," he said. "Mine is an ordinary iron axe with a well-worn wooden handle." Mercury nodded his head and dove into the river once again, coming up with the woodman's axe, the very one that had sank in the river. The woodman's face lit up with joy. "That is my axe. Thank you so much," he cried. Mercury was so pleased with the woodman's honesty that he gave him both the golden and silver axes as gifts. Overjoyed at his good fortune, the happy woodman thanked Mercury and returned home with his treasures. Soon the story of his good fortune was known to everyone in his village. One of his neighbors, a dishonest and greedy man, decided to try getting a golden axe and a silver axe for himself, too. So he took his axe to the river and threw it into the water on purpose. Then he wept and wailed loudly, pretending to be upset and calling out for Mercury to help him. Mercury indeed appeared, just as he had with the woodman, and asked what had happened. After the man told his sad, made-up story, Mercury dove into the river and brought up a beautiful, shimmering golden axe. Before Mercury could even say anything, the man cried out, "That's mine! That's my axe!" And he reached out greedily to grab it. Mercury didn't let him grab it and frowned at the man. "Your dishonesty and greed have shown me who you really are, and that what you told me is not at all true. So I will not give you this golden axe, and I won't get back the one you threw into the river either." With that, Mercury disappeared, leaving the dishonest man alone and empty-handed. The moral of this story is, honesty is always the best policy. This story is enjoyed by children all over the world. Children just like you. So close your eyes and listen closely to the story of the fox and the crow. One bright sunshiny morning, a hungry fox was searching through the forest for a bite to eat. As he looked, he saw a crow perched on a tree branch overhead. What caught his attention and made him stop for a second look was that the lucky crow was proudly holding a tasty-looking piece of cheese in her beak. She looked quite pleased with herself for what she had found, now thinking about how delicious her breakfast was going to be. On the ground just below, the sly fox watched her and thought to himself, "There's no need to search any further. Up there in her beak is my breakfast." His mouth watered as he thought about a way to get the cheese for himself. And finally, when he had devised a cunning plan, he walked up to the tree where the crow sat. "Good morning, beautiful bird," called the fox, looking up at the crow. The crow, her head cocked to one side, watched the fox suspiciously. She kept her beak tightly closed on the cheese and did not return his greeting. "Surely no animal or bird in the forest compares to you," the fox said. "Your feathers shine like the very best silk. Your eyes are like sparkling jewels. And what splendid, strong wings you have! I am sure you must be the most magnificent of all birds." The crow puffed up with pride at the fox's words, ruffling her feathers in delight. But since she still held the cheese firmly in her beak, the fox continued to flatter her. "Such a wonderful bird should have a very lovely voice, too, since everything else about you is so perfect," he continued. "Could you sing just one song for me? Then, after your song, no doubt you will be proclaimed queen of all birds." The crow, thoroughly charmed by the fox's flattery, forgot all about her suspicion, and also about her cheese. She wanted very much to be called the queen of all birds, so she opened her beak to sing, and sang out with a loud caw. But as she did, the cheese fell from her beak and dropped to the ground below, right in front of the fox. The cunning fox pounced on the cheese and grinned. "Thank you, madam," he said sweetly. "You do have a voice, no doubt, but what you lack are brains." With that, he walked off with the cheese, leaving the hungry crow thinking about her lost breakfast. The moral of this story is, beware of flattery, and don't believe everything you hear. Now let's listen to AESOP'S fable about the boy and the nuts. A boy who was very fond of nuts was told one day by his mother that he could have a handful. "As big a handful as I want?" he asked. "As big a handful as you can take," his mother answered. Because he loved nuts so much, he eagerly reached into the nut jar and grabbed as many as his fist could hold. But when he tried to get his hand out, he couldn't, because the neck of the jar was too narrow. He tried and tried to squeeze his handful of nuts out, but no matter how hard he tried, his hand would not come out of the jar. There he stood, unwilling to let a single nut go, and unable to get his hand that held the nuts out either. Frustrated, he began to cry. "My son," said his mother, "the fault is not with the jar. It is your greed that makes you cry. Don't try to take them all at once. Let go of a few nuts, and you'll be able to get your hand out." The moral of this story is, half a handful is better than none. Here is another fable by Aesop. Let's listen to the story of Androcles and the lion. There once was a man in ancient Rome named Androcles. He was a good man, but his master was so cruel to him that at last Androcles ran away and hid in a nearby forest. After a few days of hiding, Androcles heard moaning and groaning nearby. Slowly he moved in the direction of the sounds. As he crept through some brush, he came upon a mighty lion lying on the ground. Androcles was terrified and about to run away when he saw that one of the lion's paws was bleeding badly and very swollen. Now Androcles loved animals, and he couldn't bear to see the lion in such pain. He slowly crept closer to see what he could do to help the injured lion. The mighty lion looked at him and held up his huge, swollen paw. Androcles could see that the paw hurt very badly. He also saw that there was a sharp thorn stuck in it. "Hold on, dear fellow," Androcles said gently. "I'll get that nasty thorn out for you, but please don't bite me." The mighty lion roared in pain while Androcles slowly and carefully worked the thorn out of his huge paw. Thankfully, the lion didn't bite him. And when it was all over and the thorn was gone out of his paw, the lion licked the man's hand. Over time, the paw healed, and in gratitude, the lion brought Androcles to his den and treated him as a friend. They shared the den for many days, and a close affection grew between them. Later on after this, both Androcles and the mighty lion were captured by Roman soldiers, with Androcles taken to a judge, and the lion thrown into a cage under the emperor's arena. The judge said that because Androcles had run away from his master, he was going to be thrown to the lions in the emperor's arena. 2 days later, the emperor, all his court, and the entire city came to watch the man be torn to shreds. After everyone was seated, Androcles was taken out into the middle of the huge arena. Then a lion that had been starved for a few days to make him hungry and very mean was let out of his cage in the same arena. The hungry lion came roaring and running hard towards Androcles, who stood all alone in the middle of the arena. The lion was ready to spring onto the man, but he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Purring, the lion quieted down and walked over to Androcles and laid down right next to him. And what did the emperor, his court, and all the people see then? They saw the lion licking Androcles' face and hands. The crowd gasped in disbelief. The lion should have been tearing Androcles to pieces. But it turned out to be the same lion that Androcles had helped in the forest. Moved by the lion's loyalty and Androcles' kindness, the people cried out for both of their lives to be spared. Then the emperor, astonished by this remarkable turn of events, declared that both Androcles and the mighty lion should be set free forever. The moral of this story is, a person is often repaid for kindness in ways never expected.